This week on The Grit Crusade
is that why compare when we've been called uniquely to our kids?
Man,
like
right?
There's no one else who can raise our children the way that we can raise our children.
I know.
Because God didn't give your kid to me or my kids to you. He gave them to us distinctly and individually.
Yeah. Hey, Grit Crusaders. Welcome to the Grit Crusade podcast. I am your co-host today on episode 2 of the mini-series, or part 2 of the mini-series, with my co-host and best friend, Dani Hardy. So glad you're here. We are in a mini-series. Okay. Yeah. Called Navigating. So the last one, which we'll link in the show notes, is Navigating Hard Seasons.
Right.
And today we're going to talk about navigating motherhood.
Dun, dun, dun.
What'd you say? There's no hood like the motherhood. That's right. So for those of you that are moms, live with moms, you're around moms, you want to be a mom.
You know a mom.
You don't ever want to be a mom. Yeah. This episode will give you some light into life and the motherhood and the real.
Yes,
because that's what we do on the Grit Crusade. So if you're new, GRIT stands for Getting Real in the Trenches. And we talk about life, relationships, and business. Mm-hmm. And today I have a co-host.
Yeah.
It's more exciting. So yeah. So what do you got for us on navigating motherhood?
Oh gosh.
Right?
I mean, first of all, I just feel like to every mom who is listening, like, take a breath and pat yourself on the back, because wherever you are, if you're like in the car, by the kitchen, like cooking dinner, like bathing kids, like you have made it this far.
Yes, I know.
Bravo.
So recording this yesterday, so this will launch in January.
Yeah.
Recording this was my son just had his 6th birthday. Mm-hmm. And so my husband and I were on our way to his elementary school to have lunch with him. Yep. And I looked at him and I said, I kind of feel like we should get a sticker because we kept him alive for 6 years.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So for people that are new, I have a 6-year-old son and you.
I have a 7-year-old daughter and January, she's a New Year's baby. So she turns 2 on January 1st.
Yeah. So she'll be 2.
2 by then.
Yeah. So 2 girls and a boy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it is, I mean, motherhood, I was never more aware of my limitations as a human than when I became a mom.
Ooh,
because there's more asked and required of me in a day than I really ever have to give.
Yeah.
Because motherhood in and of itself is a full-time job. And yet we're still, assigned to careers or jobs outside the home or other jobs inside the home. And if you're married or whatever that looks like, we're assigned to so many different things as women but motherhood in and of itself requires so much of us. And so if you've made it wherever you are in the journey, bravo, because I'm just a champion of moms because it is hard.
It is so hard. I saw something on Facebook the other day. So I'm in like some of these really fun Facebook groups, like mom groups and stuff. And so I'm a very like unfollow person. So like people that are like, Facebook's terrible and blah, blah, I'm just unfollow the stuff you don't like.
Sure.
I got this like old lady group I'm in.
You get to be in charge.
Yeah, you get to be in charge. It's your account. Just unfollow the people and the things that don't bring you joy and move on.
Right.
But anyway, so someone had posted, and this is like rocket science to my brain, and people listening are going to be like, duh. Okay. But you have these epiphany moments. And it said that the modern, like the work week of 40 hours a week was designed when someone else was at home full time.
Yeah.
I got chills in my body just saying it just then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like I got to work 40 hours and I'm also a mom.
Right.
The person working 40 hours when that happened during the Industrial Revolution,
right?
There was another human at home doing everything else.
Right.
And we are the everything else too.
Right.
Man, that's powerful, right?
It is.
Yes.
And I think it's so much. Well, here's the thing. Okay. I think moms are so critical of themselves because we want to be our very best for our kids. And then we measure ourselves so harshly against other people. And we moms pit ourselves against each other. And I'm like, no, like no more of that.
Everybody just trying to make it around here.
Right. But let's cheer each other on. Like, let's be a champion of other people. Let's cheer for moms. Let's link arms. Let's help each other out. Like if I can help you, if you can help me, like let's do that because we are trying to do the home thing really well. And we are trying to maybe do the work thing really well. Or maybe we're only working working inside the home. But that in and of itself is so
I totally agree. I told my husband the other day. So my husband and I work together for maybe our new listeners. We own our own businesses. And so he is the president of our companies. And I told him the other day, I was like, at any point, if you want to make me a stay-at-home wife, I'm totally cool with that. And like, I'm the one who founded these companies. Like I owned them before we were even married, so they're my babies, but I'm like, I'm cool staying home because I have enough to do right here that stays undone.
Yes.
Because I'm also a career mom, which I love that too. So I'm not saying I don't love that, but there are moms come in all shapes and sizes that has nothing to do with physicality, and the way that looks like, we have moms, married moms in our gym raising kids together. Mm-hmm. We've got unmarried moms. We've got moms married to moms. We've got moms married to dads. We've got moms who live together, who aren't together, that are just cohabitating together, which I think is like kind of smart and brilliant.
Yeah.
Like I think if I was a single mom, like what would be cooler to raise my kids around is another single mom also doing it and share expenses and share life. Like that's cool. So there's just so many ways to mom out there.
Yeah. I think that's a great transition through this conversation, is that why compare when we've been called uniquely to our kids?
Man,
like there's no one else who can raise our children the way that we can raise our children.
I know.
Because God didn't give your kid to me or my kids to you. He gave them to us distinctly and individually.
Yeah.
Yet we have also this collective call, like you're talking about, single moms who live together and are parenting alongside one another. We have this collective call to each other, that the people we have in our lives, that we've invited into proximity, that we have a responsibility to each other, that any opportunity that I have to pour into your baby, I should.
Absolutely.
Any chance that you have to grab my girl and pour into her, you should, because we have decided as friends for 30 years to be in this gig together.
Yeah.
And so we have a responsibility collectively to help raise the next generation and to help share the burden, because it is so much. And in other countries where people live in more communal villages and more communal systems and housing, they collaborate more as parents. And because we live in distinct homes and distinct neighborhoods, and we all have our own cars, and there's less sharing of burden. And I think our lives bear the weight of that in ways that maybe that doesn't happen in other civilizations and societies where they share the load of all things.
Well, I talk a lot about that in travel and when I talk about travel and stuff is, the American dream is to buy your house, get your own place and be on your own. But we waste all of our money, all of our riches are wasted on that American dream, because in other countries, you're never going to go buy a house because you're living in the same family house in Italy that you guys have been living in forever. And your aunt and uncle live over here and so they spend their money on experiences and actually truly building something for that they can, give to their kids, or to go to nice restaurants, or to have great wine. And you're not spending all the time on maintenance.
Yeah.
Because the more we have, the more we have to take care of.
Right.
And I think that provides such a separation, you lose the wisdom of the generation of women and moms who came before you, when you're not all living together.
Right.
And that's the part for me as a mom that's the hardest. Is not having all the women that I grew up around, my grandparents and all that close by to be able to say like, yes, he's sick with this. You don't need to call a doctor. I don't need a doctor's note. I got my grandma already knows. We're going to give him some tea or put some salve on his back or Wonder Jelly or whatever that we learned in the last episode. And, roll on. And so that's hard because it gives you that, like, I have to figure it out on my own. Yeah.
And we have such an individualistic mindset where we're all trying to be individuals, when really there is this beautiful, while remaining autonomous in our motherhood, that I'm the only mom biologically that these girls will ever have. I'm the only mom.
Yeah.
And that's gives me a lot of authority and autonomy in their lives, but it also allows me to have this greater collective connection with women, like-minded women who I'm responsible for finding and testing the waters of who they are and what they believe. And is that similar to what I believe? And I want to be in connection with them. But then having the conviction and the calling to go deep with them in relationship and trust them with my children, and have this ability to link arms and to text a friend and say, hey, listen to this cough. Hey, what is this? What's going on? And get wisdom and advice instead of everything having to be so individual. Because I think we lose so much inside of motherhood when we're trying trying to navigate it alone. And our kids are at a deficit because I'm only one person. But in a collective of people, we can glean wisdom and we can grow not only our individual kids, but a generation of kids to be better and stronger and to have a more communal mindset, which for me, I mean, scripture is what I base my life on. And community is everything in scripture, that we're called to do life together, that we're called to run alongside other people with our same faith, values, and beliefs. And if we're only ever doing that in isolation, then we're probably never actually getting it right.
Well, and there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
So the problems and the issues and that they've already been solved by a generation before us.
Yeah.
And so to have that connection inside community is huge, whatever that community looks like.
Sure.
What do you think the hardest part is of being a mom today?
Oh, man. I think comparison is a huge issue inside of motherhood, because I think in our present world, like the Pinterest motherhood has become such a phenomenon that I'm not a big, huge fan of. I mean, I am all for Pinterest. I love Pinterest, got it on my phone, cook from it, whatever. But I think it allows us, that and social media allows us to compare in such a negative way. And so then we're not only navigating tension from our womanhood, from our humanity, but then we're trying to also bring that into our motherhood. And I think it just creates a lot of tension. And so I think comparison is a huge thief of the joy that we have inside. And comparison in and of itself isn't negative, but I'm talking about negative comparison. And so I think that's a huge issue. But then I also think that we have shifted from thinking that we always need to correct our kids, when really first we should be connecting with our kids. And so if we're going to correct, to check ourselves and say, have we connected today? Have I made an intentional effort to connect with my child as a human today? And if I haven't done that, let me connect first and correct later. And so I think that's a huge thing, is that we are so busy, whether it's with work or whether it's with relationships or goals for ourselves, just being a person, being a woman, that I think we are so connected to other things, other places, and other people. And we're not as connected to our kids as they need us to be, and really as we need to be as moms.
Connecting before correcting. That's good. That's really good.
It's probably not unique to me. I probably have heard that somewhere.
Okay.
But
all right. We'll just claim it today.
There we go.
Yeah.
For today, I said it.
I love that.
But I mean, because for us, like our 7-year-old, she is like me, and she has very big feelings. I'm a very big feeler. And so when I see her beginning to have a meltdown, I have to be able to look at her behavior and say, okay, what came before this behavior? What is she trying to accomplish through this behavior? Is she looking for power? Is she looking for a battle here? Is she looking for what does she need in this moment? Why is she acting out in this way? Or what is she displaying? What are her emotions trying to tell me? And how can I meet the need that's present instead of getting mad at the behavior that I don't like? And so for us, a lot of times, if I need to correct her in a big way, we'll go for a walk. And she does not always love it. She doesn't always like, yeah, Mom, let's go for a walk, because a lot of times she's just mad or she's really sad or whatever. But we will walk and we will hold hands. That's my rule. It's like, if we're going to go for a walk, we're going to hold hands. And so we walk and we hold hands.
I bet she is pissed.
Right?
I feel like I'd be so mad at you if you're making me hold your hand while I'm mad.
But we do.
But I get
it's
it.
a form of connection.
Yeah,
because then she has to feel me. And we're walking at a steady cadence and pace with each other. And our tenderness towards each other is different. And she and her daddy, when they need to have those moments, they'll go on the back porch swing. And the rule is, if we're going to go to the porch swing, you have to sit beside me. And so they sit beside each other and they hold hands and they rock. And so then their bodies are in a consistent and steady cadence with each other, and it levelizes breathing. And then they're able to have a correctional conversation that otherwise is just going to be an all-out brawl. And that's not the goal. The goal is connection and then correction. Because for our 7-year-old, she receives that a lot better if she knows that we really love her and we really care about her. And even if she's mad, whatever she's navigating, she can bring it to the table. And we're not going to ask her to pack up her crazy and walk away. We're going to say, bring your crazy, and let's unpack it together and let's work through what this looks like.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so that's it for the 7-year-old. But it's hard. It's hard to maintain that connection. And then so that we can correct. And our 2-year-old, her new favorite like words to say at home, and she's in speech. And so that's got a whole other level of difficulty that we're navigating newly in this season, is identifying our child who has some special needs and being able to be for her what she needs, which is unique to her and distinct from our other child. And so again, that multifaceted way that we're trying to deliver ourselves. I'm trying to deliver myself as a mom in one way to this child and one way to this child. And those are unique and distinct and different. But for our almost 2-year-old, well now 2-year-old, she'll say, "Mommy, pay. Mommy, pay." And she'll reach up for my hand and she'll want to go sit and play. Now she wants to play with the blocks for 7.5 seconds. And then she wants to play with the baby doll for 1.2 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like, right. It's like super fast. And so I have to help her slow down so that we can actually connect. And it's not just throwing this or doing that or building that or going here, that it's actual time to slow down and look in the eyeballs and talk and say hello and connect on a deeper level. Because then if I have to correct her in a moment or have to plop her little hiney down and tell her no in timeout, then she realizes, oh, my mama loves me and she's connecting with me, but that I just did isn't right. And so if it's connecting through play, if it's connecting through a walk, connecting as we're attempting to correct our children, I think is a huge assignment inside of motherhood, a huge responsibility and a huge difficulty for us to navigate.
Don't you wish you could have told your younger self that? You know, like I wish I would have known that at the beginning of parenthood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I mean, I think we grow in our wisdom as moms, you know, and every child does need something totally different. Like my son is very hyperactive and also has needs. He's an OT and PT and he was a preemie. So I had a traumatic 10-week early delivery. We spent the first month of his life in the NICU. And that's a whole different chapter of motherhood that you hope people are never invited into, you know? And so anytime I get texts all the time from random people I'm not even close to, and they'll go, "Hey, my sister just had a kid 10 weeks early. My brother's wife just delivered 8 weeks early.
Yeah.
What do I do for them? What can I do for them?"
Right.
Because you don't know how to help someone in that season. And I tell people all the time that are about to have babies, especially first-time moms, if that baby gets to lay on your chest after you have it, it's a win. Don't worry about anything else.
Yeah.
Because for us NICU moms, we don't get that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, but as a young child, I am very hyperactive and distracted and all the things. And so I didn't have any clue that getting him, he just plays with a lot of stuff. And getting him to understand like the sustained attention and focus and the things that we work on now that I didn't know then. Didn't know better. Right. You know, and so I think there's a layer of guilt that you carry with that as a mom that you have to learn to let go too.
Yeah.
Of, you know, parents of teenagers, you know, looking back, I can imagine him being 15 and thinking about the things I wish I'd done differently, you know, and learning how to experience that, feel that, and walk through that and then let it go.
Yeah.
You know, and don't hold on to it. Well, if I hadn't spanked him so much, or if I had spanked him more, or if I had grounded him, or if I had given him the iPad less, or, you know, whatever, and learn how to make those decisions and choices as you go. Who is it that says, is it Nelson Mandela? Know better, do better. Once you know better, do better.
I don't know.
Maya Angelou. It's Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
Yes. Once you know better, do better.
Right.
You know, and I think that's so true with motherhood because you just can't know it all.
Yeah. Well, I have this foundational belief in my life that I believe we all do the best we can every day with what we have.
Agreed. 100%.
Because each person has something different and they have it differently every day, whether it's a different level of resource, energy, time, effort, knowledge, whatever we have is different. But I believe we really are all doing the best we can, which is why I think when we compare ourselves to someone else who has a totally different set of circumstances, resources, time, energy, knowledge, wisdom, whatever, it's so detrimental to who we are as a person, but then also as a mom, because that's a great, just defiant, like kick in the pants to comparison and to guilt when we're able to say, no, I will not be upset with myself about what I did 2 years ago. Because who I was 2 years ago and what I had to offer
who I am now.
is not who I am now. And so when we're able to really get a hold of ourselves and say, no, I'm not going to feel guilty. I can acknowledge that I did something that I now see and say is wrong. But then I didn't know that, because had I known it then, guess what? I wouldn't have done it.
Right. Yeah.
Because none of us are waking up and saying, how can I screw up my kids today?
Yeah.
We're not saying that.
Yeah.
We're really trying to give this thing our very best, but what we have to offer every day is distinct. And it's and what we have to offer is different than what someone else has to offer.
Mhm.
And so I'm all about grace inside of motherhood, all about like really appreciating who we are. And then having the courage to learn from other people, having the courage to say, hey, I saw this and it really worked for y'all. What does that look like in your life? And can you tell me about that? And then that person being able to take that knowledge or wisdom and apply it to their own scenario and their own circumstances. And then also the courage. And this is tricky, I think, for moms. And this, I think, I'm gonna give a disclaimer here. This piece of wisdom, I feel like, has to be executed inside of really safe community where you know that you are loved so deeply and dearly, community where you trust the people who you're allowing to speak into your life, but inside of a safe community that you allow yourself to have people who can speak into your motherhood, people who can approach you not in a moment of tension, but maybe after a moment of tension and say, hey, I saw this happen. And I want to speak to that, and that they have permission to speak into your life and give correction where it's needed, to give edification where it's needed, to help you and encourage you. But that's not like the guy at the store who you don't even know. Like he can just go on with himself.
It's like internet trolls. No, thank you.
Like
yes.
we have to be careful about who we allow to have voice in our life, but it's necessary for us as moms to have people who do have voice in our lives. And so I think about you, like not having your mom, not having your grandma, but you have built this tribe of women around you who love your child, who are intentional to engage with you. And those are people you trust, you know?
And have no trouble telling me when I need correction.
Right. And we need that.
We do need that though. We do.
But we have to, when we receive correction, we have to evaluate, who is it coming from? How do they feel about me? And then for my life, I say, did they love Jesus more than they love me? And do they truly love me? And if they do, if those are all yeses, then I can receive what they're offering to me as correction and not condemnation.
Well, I always try to think of what lens are they looking through?
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like everyone wears a set of lenses in life. And sometimes those lenses, sometimes you take the pink ones down and you put the blue ones on.
Sure.
And as you grow, the lenses change. But your life experiences influence those lenses that you look through. You were talking about a minute ago about, you know, us all showing up every day for our best. So my mentor when I was a teacher is Mary Jane Brockington, my favorite women on the planet. And she told me a story about one of her first years teaching. So she was teaching at a very rough junior high in Little Rock in the inner city. And a mom walked in who was on meth. And so if you've ever been around anyone who's on meth, you can tell, you know, they're very jerky. There's like physical signs, weight loss, tooth decay, things like that. And some of these other moms, it's not other moms, other teachers were talking about the mom that came in. Like, oh my God, did you see her? I can't believe she showed up at parent conferences and she was high on drugs and blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a lady, her name's Ruby Payne, and she does a lot of training called for under-resourced learners, which is not necessarily financial poverty, but in other ways. And so she was actually a consultant with the school at the time. She walked up to those teachers and she said, I want to tell you something. That mom showed up.
Yeah,
I'll get teary-eyed saying this. She showed up being the best that she could be today. And so you have to look at every parent through the lens of if they're here, that is the best they could do today. Because how many parents never even showed up?
Yeah.
And that forever changed my lens of the way I look at the way. And this was at that time I wasn't a mother when I learned this story of how I look at parents and how they show up with their kids, because sometimes showing up is the best they can do.
Right.
No matter what else happens, they're there.
Yeah.
You know? And so it just helps you to remember, like, you never know. I did a podcast a while back that talked about a picture into someone's life. Like if you take one snapshot and look at someone's life, you can't judge them based off that one snapshot, because like you said, who you were 2 years ago is not who you are now. We have to have that grace to give grace to people of not judging them on the past versions of themselves.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. I have in my notes, show up.
Yeah.
Because I think I talk to a lot of moms in my line of work. I'm a women's pastor. And so I talk to a lot of women, a lot of moms who do have guilt. And they're like, well, I can't show up at this event, or I can't do that, or I'm so busy and I have all these things to do. And I tell them all the time, show up. If you're showing up at the breakfast table, If you're showing up at the dinner table, if you're showing up at bath time, if you're showing up at bedtime, if you're showing up on the way to school or picking up from home from school or greeting them at some time in the night, if you're showing up in some form or fashion every day, then because you can't make one ball game, they're not going to view your whole motherhood through one single
They're not
event
going to remember.
because you're showing up all the other times.
Yes.
We're so hard on ourselves and feel like we have to multiply ourselves and do everything and be everything to everyone. And it's just not true. But we do have to show up our best, whether that's attending a conference, whether that's making breakfast, whether that's pouring some milk over a bowl of cereal. Show up. Because if we're showing up every single day in whatever capacity we can and we're able to, then our deficits are going to be more diminished in the eyes of our kids because they see a mom who's showing up as often as she can, the best way that she can.
Yeah, absolutely. And they only know something I learned about being raised, by a mother who was very sick, which of course I didn't know she was sick at the time, right? Because you only know what your normal is.
Right.
So these kids only view their mom as normal. As they're growing up. It won't be until they're way into their 20s until they may realize that,
right,
girl, you was a bit crazy, But so you are their
So we have a few more years.
Yes, we got a few more years to our kids. What did you tell me one time? You said, I always say, I hope I don't screw my kids up more than therapy can handle.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're all going to have their own version of therapy. And I think once I think Crew was about 2 or 3, once I realized he gonna have therapy anyway. So as long as I just try to keep it as good as I can, whatever. Cause I'm a flawed human, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something I've been teaching him lately. So he came home from school last week and he said, just out of the blue, something about them car rides, right? Have you ever smoked? That's what he says to me. And I'm like, I'm sure they're talking about it at school,
Yeah.
And I'm
Drug-free week.
Yeah. I'm like, yes, I have smoked. Why did you smoke? And I'm like, well, I just tried it and it was terrible. And the true story, I probably max smoked 5 cigarettes my whole life. Right. And I'm probably not sure if I inhaled any of them, but I was probably 17 at a party. I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a smoker. And so, I don't like smoking weed, nothing. I've done that probably more than 5 times, but definitely not a cigarette thing. And so he's like, so why did you do it? And I'm like, okay, well, I just wanted to try it and see. And he's like, what was it like? I'm like, it would taste terrible. It made me sick. I didn't like it. Truth. All right. Fast forward 2 weeks, gets in the car yesterday.
Yeah.
How come you smoked? And I'm like, well, there was probably some friends around that had cigarettes that I shouldn't have been hanging out with. Well, why would you hang out with people that smoke? And I was like, well, you know what? I've made bad choices before. Yeah. I know this is hard for you to believe, but I haven't made all the good choices. Right. And he was like, but it's trying to teach him that, no, it's not okay for you to go smoke or to do all these things. And then he's like, well, I'm going to extend my life by not smoking. That's what he tells me in the car. And I'm like, okay, keep telling yourself that when you're 17,
Yes.
But it's getting him to understand that we all make mistakes. We're flawed humans. However, that doesn't mean we're lowering the expectation that you're going to make good choices, you know? I mean, and so I think that's another thing that's hard to balance as parents too, because you want to be as transparent as you can for your children that is age appropriate.
Right.
I didn't know until after my mom died that she had tried to commit suicide when I was 2.
Right.
I didn't need to know that growing up. Right. Sure. And so there are things that you just figuring out that balance of how do we let them know about our last episode, hard seasons, when you're a motherhood and hard seasons and transition,
Right.
Neither one of us have ever been divorced with kids. So I've got the fair share of divorces for the both of us, but not with kids.
Sure.
And that's a whole different season,
Sure.
And I know in my role working in the youth recreational world and you working with women all the time, that's something that we help women walk through, and it looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think that comparison is the thief of joy. I mean, you said earlier that not all comparison is bad. And
comparison in and of itself, right, is to take 2 objects and decide how they are similar and dissimilar.
If we weren't human, I would agree with you. But the fact that we're human, and I don't think that we, for the most part, have the natural capability, maybe trained, but the natural capability to not automatically let it steal your joy. That's the hard part.
But that's where, and I'm speaking for myself, not for every listener, but for myself. I'm filled with the Holy Spirit because I love Jesus.
Yeah.
And so it is him in me that can look at you and can compare even myself to you. And that allows me to appreciate your strengths that are different from my strengths.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
Your experiences that are different than mine. And that comparison can allow me to appreciate you differently.
Love that.
Than if I weren't allowing comparison at all in my life. And so it's negative comparison. And that's my perspective on it. Because yes, my humanity could compare myself to you and get mad that you're skinny and little and always have been. And I never was, like, okay. But I don't allow myself to do that because I'm not navigating my life by my flesh. I'm navigating my life by my spirit because that's the Lord at work in me.
That's good. See, and I guess that's like for me, and I'm not saying that, I'm better than anybody else. I have a lot of struggles, but comparison's never been one of mine. And maybe it is the Holy Spirit. I also think my brain is really, really fast. Mm-hmm. So I've always seen like, I don't slow down enough to like, I'm in everyone's corner until I'm not.
Yeah.
And it is very rare that I'm not.
Sure.
And if I'm not in your corner, I'm not against you. I've just decided to not allow you in my life anymore.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I am the eternal cheerleader in people's corner. Mm-hmm. I love cheering women on. Mm-hmm. Like I can't wait to see what another mom or woman's going to do.
Yeah.
Like and there is no thought in my brain of what's less or more than me. I don't have that measuring stick, but that's where I do think that comparison can be some people's demons.
Absolutely. Because we can compare ourselves and it can cause us to distance ourselves because that person either makes me feel really bad about me or I'm going to pull them close because they help me to feel better about me.
Oh,
right?
I don't like
but
that.
We do that.
Yeah.
Like that is a tendency of humans.
Yeah.
And so I think comparison allows us to extend our arm and it allows us to draw people in for the wrong reasons, like negative comparison, because it can create a demotion of others or an elevation of self. And inside of motherhood, it's so detrimental because God didn't give our kids to anybody else. He gave them uniquely to us and uniquely into this generation, that they're born into this generation, into this circumstance, this country, wherever you live, that they're born into a specific time, place, and people group for a reason.
Not good.
It is. And it's so important. And so when we begin to compare negatively and we allow ourselves to lose the joy inside of motherhood and all we look at are the responsibilities, then it's hard to stay motivated to be who we're called to be and show up for our kids every single day.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
So I have a question for you.
Get it. I like questions.
Okay.
Good thing because we're here on a podcast, right?
Right. So I'm going to preface this a little bit with just some of my own context to set the stage.
Have a drink of tea while you do that part.
Okay, perfect. So again, I love scripture, and one of my favorite moms inside of scripture is Mary, the mother of Jesus. And when she found out that she was pregnant and he was born, it says in scripture that she treasured or pondered those things in her heart about her son being the Son of God. And so I try inside of my motherhood to find things to treasure about my children. And it's really hard in this culture where we're being taught this tendency that everything is public and very little is private. And so we're moving away from this sacredness of treasuring things inside of our motherhood because we're so frequently putting our motherhood and our lives on display for people publicly. And so I'm curious for you, because I know this is true in your life because I know you, but you are someone who is seen publicly. You're someone, you have multiple businesses, people know your face, they know your name, you've lived in this community your whole life, like you are a public figure here. And so as someone who is seen publicly, and I can relate to that. I mean, I'm on stage almost every single weekend. People see me and they know me, right? They think that they know who I am. And so I have to treasure certain things and hold them sacred and hold them private to me. And so I'm just curious for you, what does treasuring inside of motherhood look like for you? Is that those pockets of time you were talking about in our last episode, that you take time in those moments to treasure? Is it sitting in the floor like I do with our 2-year-old and playing and connecting deeply as much as I can with the 2-year-old? What are those things that you treasure that you think, oh, this would be maybe a fun picture on Facebook or Instagram, but then you go, no, I'm going to treasure that. Or, oh, I want to tell Justin this. And it's like, no, I'm going to treasure that. Like, do you have those moments? I believe you do. I know you do.
Yeah.
And what does that look like for you to treasure something inside of your motherhood, even though you are seen publicly?
Right. So I'll start with, I post on social media enough. So that word to me means, all right, so people are gonna be like, yeah, it's enough. I post on there enough so I'm in control of the narrative. When you are a public figure, if you're not posting anything, people will come up with a story about what's going on in your life.
That's good.
So I post enough, but I never share everything. Yeah. And I love that. So I probably share 25% of my life.
Yeah.
People are going to be alarmed by that. Like, what? Yeah. So most of my life is not online.
Correct.
And I like that because like, I also like sharing things with people online too, because I'm also a very like the more we talk, the more we all talk person. Okay. So I say that because I put that on all of my life, not just like my parenthood, but the things I treasure with my son. And if anyone's ever met him, it will not surprise them is he likes to talk a lot.
Yeah.
And so our connection is in conversation.
Yeah.
Every single day, like we are connecting in conversation. And so I put him to bed at night and we read 3 books. It's a tradition Justin started when he was little. And then I pray over him most nights. And then some nights he pops up and prays for something, you know? And so like 2 nights ago, and I did tell Justin about this one is, and it sounds funny. I'm going to say it. So he wants to know, once the Holy Spirit gets in him, how does he get it out?
Oh,
how do you get it out? If it gets in there, how do you get it out? And so like just realizing the simplicity of my role as a mom is really very simple. Like I want him to be kind and love Jesus and whatever else he does. It really doesn't matter to me, you know? And right now he wants to be an art teacher and he's all into art. Well, my husband is artsy as an adult, but he was like Mr. Tri-Sport All-American, everything in sports.
Right.
And he's not that kid. He's not saying he never will be, but he's going to have to work for it if he is. Like if he's the kid that's starting 5 in the basketball team, he worked really hard to get there. Like, I don't know, whatever. I'll be there on the front row with the shirt on and the pom-poms and the whole thing, you know? Yeah. But for me, it was realizing that he is going to choose his own journey. Right. And I just want to be here for it. Like, I just want to have a place in his life when he's 35, when he's 40, even though right now he thinks when he's 40, I'm going to be dead. He keeps telling me, well, you'll be dead by then anyway. And I'm like, is your grandmother dead? And he's like, no, she picks me up every Friday from school. No, of course. I see her every week. And so him realizing like, I'm not that old, you know, but like, I just want to have a front row seat on whatever he's doing. And I have a friend named Kim and she's raised 4 boys and she's very close to them and they're very different. And they're like late high school to like past college age. And I said, how are you so close to them? How have you built a unique relationship with these 4 boys? Yeah. And she said, I was always into, and I'm always into whatever they're into. Right. So if they're into Ninja Turtles, I know all their names. We sit and play with them. We talk about Ninja Turtles all the time, whatever it is, because it wasn't up to me to try to decide like what he's into. Right. You know, I do not want him to be into Pokemon because it is so annoying because there's literally like thousands of Pokemons and he is appalled that I don't know all their names. But I know like 5 and that's, you know, I mean, I know something. A few, you know? Yeah. So just trying to meet him where he is and learn to like kind of coach him in life. Yeah. Instead of always, like you were saying earlier, like not like a coach is not someone that yells at you from the sideline what to do. A coach is someone who was there during the 2-a-days when you were sweating all summer to get ready for that sport. Yeah. You know? And so like being there on the days that he comes home and like now he gets in the car and he immediately reports his behavior for the day. That we don't hide things in this family because we don't have to. Right. You don't have to be ashamed of yourself. Right. You know? And so like, I feel like I'm growing a human and I feel like equally unqualified at the same time, you know, but I also believe that God doesn't call the equipped, you know, he equips the called. And so like, I feel like I'm getting better at being his mom as the longer I'm his mom, you know? So for any women that are in that season of struggling in motherhood, you know, because goodness knows we get there, like, it's okay to just be getting better as they grow.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
Like,
I want to honor something in you because you're talking about the way that you are showing up into the things that he's interested in, and you're cheering him on. And if it's art, or if it's one day he works really hard to be on the basketball team, whatever it is.
God bless that coach.
Right. That you are honoring that, and you're showing up in the ways that he's growing and the ways that he's developing. And you've done that since the very beginning. I think back to those days in the NICU. And you would send me pictures and say, today we're celebrating that he came off the nasal cannula.
Yeah.
Today we're celebrating that he's in an open, an open incubator.
Yeah.
And so all of the different stages, and it may have been, you're waiting for 2 weeks for him to make a single milestone, and you were there every second.
Yeah.
You sent me pictures of you on the computer working while you're nursing, like working it out,
you had to.
And really making it happen because you were willing to celebrate him wherever he was and show up the best that you could.
And I think it's important to say is I wasn't trying to have a baby either. And so I remember showing up at my OB's office, and I told Justin was with me, my husband, and I told Heather, I said, I know her personally, so I don't call her doctor. I don't call her doctor. I know it sounds bad, but I told her, I said, and it was guilt. It was guilt, but it was like I had to tell her, like, I didn't want this baby. And she goes, statistics tell us that 52% of women, or 52% of pregnancies, are unwanted. It's okay that you didn't want him in the beginning. Most people weren't trying to have a baby,
Yeah.
And just to have, like, for anyone out there to hear that, like, it's okay if you didn't want the baby at first. It's okay that you panicked and freaked out and didn't know, like, but you made the decision to still be a mom, and you didn't have to, and I didn't have to make that decision. I could have chose something different. And my life I can't even imagine my life without him now, but I was terrified.
But what did you do when you were terrified? Who did you call?
You.
Exactly.
I called another mom.
You called, you asked
somebody.
For help.
Yeah, you have
asked
to.
For help. And what did I do?
You drove here from Alabama, like, overnight. Like, the next day, bam.
That's his whole thing. We're talking about the very beginning of the episode. We need community. We need to be able to exist, especially inside of motherhood, inside of community, because when we're asked to navigate roads that maybe we didn't ask for, we didn't think we were getting into, we weren't signing up for, we need people to walk alongside with us
and say, you can do this.
Yes. And to show up. I had my 7-year-old who was at that point, like, not even 2 yet.
Yes.
I had her in tow. I mean, we were like, she was sleeping in one room. You and I were sharing a bed. We were crying. We were thinking about all the things and possibilities. And I think I said to you, like, I'm here. Like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yep. And I think I
allowed you to have courage.
And I was ashamed, because I was knocked up. I wasn't married. Hell, I'd already been divorced 3 times. What was the big deal? But I was raised in a very conservative, shameful, religious type of culture.
Yeah.
Not saying anything bad about the church or the preacher or anything, but missionary Baptist, it was very, like, hide everything.
Yeah.
There wasn't that. And in the 90s, things were different than they are now, right?
Sure.
And so, but there wasn't a place to make mistakes in my world growing up, know? And so, like, to have someone like you in my life is a gift in itself, but to just be able to sit there and have someone that will just sit there with you and help you figure it out. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Showing up.
Yeah. Showing up. That's the theme.
Showing up for our kids inside of motherhood. Showing up for other moms.
Yes.
Showing up and saying, I don't have solutions. I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to sit with you in the tension, and I'm willing to show up and be present, and I'm not going anywhere.
Man, that's huge, though, is the part that you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think you talked about it earlier just a little bit about making sure, you're in a protected community of people you trust, but it's also knowing, like, I'm going to tell you that I'm pregnant, and you're going to be like, we can't be friends anymore. And I know that's not realistic for our situation, but I feel like there's so many people out there that may feel that way about people, and it's like, find your people.
Yeah.
Find your people that are going to be there, because just like we talked about in episode 1 of this mini series that your husband Dusty says, and I wrote it down, is we have to decide ahead of time who we're going to be. Yeah. You have to decide ahead of time. You have to decide ahead of time. Oh my gosh, hold on. we have to decide ahead of time who we surround ourselves with.
Right.
Because those people that we allow in our lives, those other moms, other women, other men in our lives that have a voice in our life.
Right.
When hard times come, we got to have the right people around us,
right.
you know, because living so distant and spread apart and all that, like, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah. But if for a mom who's listening and you're like, I don't have community, what am I supposed to do? I don't have anyone. I would say borrow our courage in this moment that community is possible, and then take a step towards creating it for yourself.
Yes.
If that's joining a mom's group, if that's going, if your kids are, at a gym and reaching out to some other moms there, if your kids are in an activity and being willing to be vulnerable and being willing to go first to make a friend, to build community, if it's going to a church for the first time, whatever it is, whatever it looks like for you to create community, to borrow our courage to say,
absolutely,
healthy and safe community is not only possible,
right,
but you can do it
absolutely
for yourself where you are, right where you are.
I mean, even a simple question of, are you guys from around here?
Right.
Can open a whole window of maybe they just moved here and they don't have a friend either.
Yeah.
I've learned that that's an easy question to ask people when you're not sure how to start conversations, when you're in like mom type situations,
Right.
So I feel like that's huge. All right. So you have trivia for us.
I do. I have trivia in the trenches.
Let's do trivia in the trenches.
Let's do it.
Co-host style.
Okay, I wrote this down. Where'd it go? Okay. How many children? Okay, so this is like a mom question, mom trivia.
All right, here, I'm ready.
So I want you to guess.
Okay.
How many children? Okay, hold on. I got to figure out a better way to ask this. Okay, there's a mother in Russia.
Okay.
Who has the most children ever recorded to a single woman.
Oh, okay. Here we are. I'm ready.
How many children did she have?
Oh my gosh. How many children did she have? Okay. So I'm thinking like 18 and counting or something, like the Duggars in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be more than that. Oh, I just can't even imagine 18. Like that just seems like, oh dear. Okay. Maybe like 24.
69.
Children?
Children.
Out of her vagina.
Well, I don't know.
Or C-section, yeah.
Or C-section.
But I mean, they were held from her uterus.
From her body.
Her uterus held 69 children.
69 children, a woman in Russia. And
wow. Okay.
Look up
so let's just talk about that. So 9 months.
Of how much of her life it was to be pregnant.
Hold on. So
it's wild.
All right. So
and she gave birth between 1725 and 1765. So hello, can we say home birth?
Epidural.
With no drugs.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. So how many was it? 60 how many?
69.
Okay. So 69 times
9 months.
69 times 9 months divided by 12 is 51 points. So 52 years pregnant straight.
Yeah, that's wild.
And she's like the most fertile myrtle ever.
And could you imagine, I'm not sure, but like nursing? Because at that age and time.
Since this is motherhood, I'm just going to take it there.
Okay.
Can you imagine having sex enough to get pregnant 69 times?
Well, and where do you, what kind of house do you live in that you have enough room for you to have sex and you have kids around?
A lot of kids. Like, I don't know how many, like 20 at a time or so.
I couldn't. I was like 69 children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Wow. In the 1700s.
Yeah.
I wonder how old she lived. Probably like the next year she died. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like that. Yeah. I feel like my boobs sag after nursing one. Could you imagine? Like, my nipples would be at my hip bones. Like, for sure.
You just went there.
I went there.
Full force.
Straight went there. Yeah, straight went there.
I calculated the other day, speaking of motherhood.
Yes. Because
I nursed both of our girls for like over a year. I have spent 3 years of my life nursing babies.
Get it, girl.
Like 3. That's a long
That is 3 years of like nutrients and sustenance you gave to a human.
Right.
Get it. I'm proud of you.
Thanks. It's like a badge of honor. I'm like 3 years. Yes, everyone. Yes. Thank
3
you very
years.
much.
I made it 5 months. Crew had 6 months of milk, but because I had so much extra.
Yeah.
But 5 months. And I felt like I was a rock star. Still do.
You
but
were.
But also don't have thief of comparison.
That's
don't
right.
care. I'm proud for you and me.
It was amazing.
I wouldn't have gone 6 months. I wouldn't have gone 7.
Yeah.
He might not be alive. I could have probably suffocated him or something.
It was not
really a funny joke.
It was a hard 3 years. It was a hard 3 years.
Nursing is a third job. So if you're a mom and you work, breastfeeding is and I'm not like a shame person. I'm like, here's my thing. Is your kid getting fed?
Fed baby.
Fed baby.
Fed baby's a happy
That's
baby.
me too.
Mhm.
Same. And then you do whatever you want to do from there.
That's right.
You know, because if we ever had another one, like, I don't know, I would probably try to nurse again. But if I couldn't, I'd just get formula. But I will tell you this. So for formula moms, you feel me. All right. So 6 months, he started formula. But you can't just go like breast milk formula, right? You got to mix it for a little bit.
Yeah.
So then I remember the first formula bottle I made, just a formula bottle.
Formula. Yeah.
And I went in there and I scooped it in the bottle and I shook it up. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, this is great.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like, I totally appreciated that like formula life.
Sure.
I was like, this is way easier.
Sure.
Yeah. So, you know, anyway.
But if I had 69 kids, I would not be nursing.
No, or could afford to buy formula. So you might be nursing. I don't know. How many husbands?
Ooh.
How many husbands was it?
I don't know.
Oh.
But then I was going to say, like, there were wet nurses then. So there were other people who would nurse your babies.
Do people still wet nurse? Is that
I'm
still a thing
sure.
for rich people? I'm sure it is.
Well, I don't know that they had to be rich. It could probably be a thing for any.
No, like you would have to pay somebody to wet nurse, right? So you would have to have money to have like a household employee.
Think about in other countries around the world, and especially places that are lower socioeconomic status, they probably help each other by nursing other children. I mean,
that's a whole nother level of trust because I got like, what are you putting in your body over there?
What are you eating? What meds are you taking?
I feel like I would be a little bit of a control freak if that happened.
You?
Yeah, I know, right? I've also thought about surrogacy, not me personally, just the topic of surrogacy, you know, and I think it's amazing because people that carry other people's babies, I feel like is a great gift.
Sure.
But I'm thinking like, oh, that surrogate gonna have to move in. She gonna have to move in. I'm going to know it. Don't be having sex with nobody else either, because then that's weird. I feel like it's gonna get on my kid.
Baby mama.
I know, but like that's so not. None of that is real. Like it's all just would be fine. And these people professionally do this and give an amazing gift to. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So what else do we have to wrap up with motherhood?
Oh gosh.
I feel like
we've covered all the things.
We have covered it really well. We have it covered. Well, I'll kind of wrap it up, right? So what we started with, there's no hood like the motherhood, you know?
Yeah.
And for people out there that are moms, like go you,
mm-hmm.
whatever season that is. Right. Beginning, maybe you used to be a mom and you've lost a child. Maybe you want to be a mom and you haven't gotten there yet. I also, on Mother's Day every year, am a firm believer in celebrating women. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like as women, we all mother each other.
That's right.
Even if you're not a birth mom,
right?
You know, and so I feel like that motherhood is something that is so all encompassing of the women that we're like blessed to have in our lives. You know, because like you talked about I was thinking about just big events that happen in my life, and most of the time, no one that's there is someone I'm related to. Mm-hmm. And I'm very proud of the village.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy, but it's worth it to find those right people to stand alongside you.
Yeah. And if you're listening to Brooke say that and you're thinking, well, I'm not mothering anyone. I'm not mothering anyone, or no one's mothering me, then maybe that's a challenge and a takeaway from today is who can I mother? Who can I pour into? Who can I mentor? Who can I come alongside? Who can I champion and cheerlead? And who do I need to do that in my life? If my life is void of a mother figure, who could be that in my life? And then have the courage to seek that person out.
Yeah. And courage is it, because asking, like being not afraid to ask, like, can I vent? Mm-hmm. Can I just have a soft place to land for a second?
Right.
And
that doesn't have to be from someone who's older than you.
No, it doesn't.
I think about our Marco Polo thread that there are moments where we're mothering each other and we're like a friendship.
Like, I just need to vent it all out right here. Yeah. And then I need you to tell me either to suck it up or that you hear me, or sometimes both.
Yeah.
Or sometimes neither.
To just listen. And so we can mother people who are the same age as us, mother people who are younger than us. It is not bound by age, because it really is a disposition of what we're bringing to the table, what we're honoring inside of each other, and what we're edifying on the other side of difficulties and hard seasons.
I love it. That's good. Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right. Until next time. Thanks for listening to The Grit Crusade. I'm Brooke Plack. Join me again next week on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. This podcast is produced by ClintonCreative.com.